My name is Lisa. I'm 23 years old. In 2021 to 2022, I swiped right on a cute guy on Tinder who invited me for coffee. It was winter, the weather was nice, and the snow was falling beautifully, creating a romantic atmosphere. From the outside, we probably looked like a sweet couple, but we were discussing some wild stuff. He told me he worked as a porn director. I asked how he ended up in such a profession. He was from Novosibirsk, moved to St. Petersburg to study, and a friend asked him to substitute for him at an interview, saying he just needed to talk to some girls. During the conversation, he started to realize that the candidates were planning to build careers in the porn industry. As it turned out, he got hooked and started attending porn festivals in America where they hand out porn Oscars. I asked how they find girls, and it turned out there was no shortage of willing candidates. Then I inquired about how he auditions them. In reality, it all comes down to a conversation. Without any intimacy, I don't know whether to believe it or not. They only take those who are focused on making money, who don't romanticize the profession and don't see it as a stepping stone to big cinema. The girl must understand that her body is a commodity that will eventually become obsolete. She needs to be grounded and mentally stable. They are wary of girls from poor families who may have trauma, like being abused by a stepfather. Basically, this guy is a small fry in a big corporation. He auditions candidates at the first stage, and then they go through a more rigorous selection process before signing a contract with a Canadian company that produces pornography. I was worried that I might receive an invitation for an audition, but it didn't happen. I don't know whether to be happy, relieved, or upset that I don't fit the criteria for a porn actress. I'm leaning toward feeling relieved. After discussing everything possible about his profession, we moved on to music and travel, and we had a very nice conversation. We had just one date. Afterward, he flew to Canada for a festival. For a while, we exchanged messages, but eventually, our communication faded away.
I'm Simon. I'm 26 years old. In my student years, I was a cheeky and spoiled girl. Like any more or less pretty lady with photos bordering on hardcore porn, I got used to the abundance of male attention on Tinder, so one day I decided to conduct an experiment. How many weeks can I live without buying food for myself at all, and eating only on dates? The universe, apparently, was stunned by such impudence and decided to send me a series of trashy dates, one of which is in question. So, I had a match with a guy who was initially a complete log in correspondence. You know, this, hi, how are you, what are you doing, AAA, I see. I approached him a couple of times for his lethargy and lack of creativity, which, apparently, hurt his delicate mental organization, and he decided to take revenge on me. He invited me to his place, assuring me that he was preparing a super romantic dinner that I would remember for the rest of my life. And he was right. Everything started off just fine. They called me a taxi, helped me take off my coat at home, and poured me some wine. And now I'm sitting at the table waiting for some steak, because they served me red wine. And then this creative guy brings out fried locust pancake. A full tray. And he's grinning like that, clearly savoring the moment and expecting me to jump on the cupboard with wild squeals. And I was silently praising the Lord that he didn't think of deep-fried tarantulas, because I'm a wild arachnophobe. And locusts, PFFFF, I ate them in Thailand too. Keeping a poker face so as not to notice that his entrance had an effect, I pressed him to the trapeze. And, you know, the saddest thing in this situation is that beer would have been much more suitable for the locust than wine. It tastes so much like chips. I sat and quietly tore off the legs of the locust, despondent from turning on the bright behavior of the guy. I went to plan B. He kept pouring me more and more wine, followed by rum and tequila, but, as I understood, he didn't have much experience in getting girls drunk. So in order to understand whether I was already in the right condition, he simply thought about it. Another glass? Let's drink to brotherhood. So, do you want me already, and now? It was a fierce cringe. Now I understand that everything that was happening was bad, but at that time I completely lacked a sense of self-preservation. I realized that it was time to go home only at that moment when I was already being persistently pushed towards the sofa. Luckily, the guy wasn't completely stunned, and his resistance was limited to a lecture on how bad I was, a dynamo and a prostitute in general. He returned with 3,000, and I dared not give it to him. My ride was long and sad. Not only was it on the subway, but there were also locusts. It turned out to be not at all filling, and I still had to buy my own food. And only a few years later, analyzing this situation, I realized how lucky I was then. So, girl, firstly, learn to make a poker face. You can't let men know that they have knocked you off balance. Secondly, learn to drink. Well, seriously, if your vision went wrong, don't be shy. Just get up and leave. And don't go to the homes of men you barely know. It's better to have your first meetings in public places. And if everything there doesn't go according to plan, don't be afraid to approach the bartender or the restaurant cafe bar manager and tell them that you're afraid for your safety. Believe me, it's also easier for them to call you a taxi and let you out through the service entrance than to explain to the investigator what time and with whom you left the building.
I am Anna. I am 25 years old, was looking for someone to go to a concert with in advance. A guy messaged me. For about a month, we met occasionally and hung out. On the day of the concert, we agreed to meet outside the club where it was supposed to take place. But he showed up looking like a pig, greasy, dirty hair, clumps of mud stuck to his boots, dirt under his nails, and clothes that looked like they came from a trash can. I could have sent him away right then and there, but I'm nice. I took him to a pharmacy, bought him water, scissors, wet wipes, and made him clean himself up a bit. After that incident, I started paying attention to the hands of guys who expressed interest in me. If they weren't well groomed, it was an immediate.
Hi, I am Stephanie. I went on a date with a guy who had very progressive views and was a pro-feminist. We sat in a bar, each got a beer, and shared an order of fries as a snack. We each paid for our own drinks, but he paid for the fries and asked me to transfer him half the money for them.
I am Vanessa. The guy on our first date talked about how terrible his exes were, and then he was very surprised when I refused to go to his place. He was even more surprised when I jumped in a taxi and went home. For some reason, he thought that since I wasn't going to his place, I would take him to mine.